The old cuckoo clock on the wall never lied, even though it hadn't been wound in years. And each time he opened his eyes, the same thing waited, the silhouette standing in the farthest corner of his room. Tall, still, watching. And though Elias screamed, though he begged, no sound ever came. Not from him, and not from the man with no mouth. He told his mother once. She was stirring something thick on the stove, something that didn't smell like food. "Dreams can't hurt you, Elias," she whispered, without turning around. Her hands were trembling, and there were deep scratches on her arms, long and deliberate. That night, the man with no mouth stood closer, and his head tilted. At school, Elias stopped talking, not out of choice, but because words no longer worked. His tongue felt heavy, stitched to the roof of his mouth. In art class, he drew him, over and over, the man with the smooth face and the twisted limbs that seemed to grow longer each night. Miss Carter told him to stop. The drawings were unnerving. She burned them. The next day, her car was found with the doors locked from the inside. No blood, no body, just pages and pages of Elias's drawings pasted to the windows. One night, Elias tried to stay awake. He drank cold coffee, bit his lip until he tasted blood. But 3:11 came anyway. He blinked. The man was beside his bed now, his body twitching, fingers gnarled like the roots of a drowned tree. Then Elias realized it wasn't just one figure. There were others, all silent, all staring, each with the same smooth face, each dressed in the pajamas Elias had outgrown. Elias found a journal in the attic. It belonged to a boy named Tobias, aged 12. Same room, same clock, same dreams. The last entry was scrawled in a frantic hand. "Don't sleep, don't speak, don't be seen." And then beneath it, smeared in something brown and dry, "He takes your voice first." At 3:11 a.m., Elias wasn't in bed. The police searched for days, weeks. His mother was found rocking in a chair, humming a tune that had no melody, her lips sewn shut with red thread. And in Elias's empty room, on the mirror, in breath-fogged writing, beneath a sky swollen with bruised clouds, the village of Dreven Hollow slept uneasily. Something had changed. The soil reeked of iron, and trees that once whispered with the wind now leaned inward, listening. Mira, a botanist from the city, arrived that morning to investigate the sudden, inexplicable bloom of blood-red lilies across the village graveyard. They grew only at night and only over fresh graves, but no one told her who was being buried. That night, Mira pitched her tent near the grave of a girl no older than 12. Her journal noted how the petals pulsed faintly under moonlight, like lungs breathing. At midnight, the ground exhaled a hiss. Roots slithered out like veins, wrapping around her ankles. She tried to scream, but the sound was stolen by the soil. Above her, the trees turned their faces away, as if ashamed. Something beneath the earth was hungry. At dawn, Mira emerged, mud-slicked, hollow-eyed, and dragging a bundle wrapped in tarp. She said nothing. The villagers watched her carry it to the oldest tree in the woods, the one called Mother Crook. No one followed. They knew better. She dug for hours, her hands raw and bleeding. When she finally opened the bundle, a small arm tumbled out and a mouth sewn shut with lilies. The tree drank deeply that night. Its bark pulsed like muscle. Mira collapsed beneath it, whispering fragments of lullabies. When morning came, her body was found crucified within the branches, her eyes replaced by lilies. The tree's roots stretched deeper into the village, curling around homes like a slow, choking embrace. Children began sleepwalking into the woods, barefoot and smiling. A desperate priest from a neighboring town came, bearing crosses and salt. He lit candles around the tree, chanting forgotten prayers. But the flames bent away from the bark, and his voice turned to cinders in his throat. The roots tore the ground open, revealing a chamber beneath the tree, lined with tiny skulls. From within the hollow, something crawled out, thin as mist, with too many teeth and a voice that mewed like a baby. Now, Dreven Hollow is gone. Only the tree remains, towering and vast, roots spread across miles like veins beneath a dying skin. Travelers say they hear lullabies in the wind, and sometimes glimpse pale children swaying in the branches. Mila was 10 when her grandmother came back from the dead. Not with a gasp or a groan, but with a knock on the front door. Rain whispered against the windows as Mila opened it to find Grandma Elsie, pale and smiling, wearing the same funeral dress she was buried in. Her mouth was too wide, her breath smelled like dirt, but Daddy let her in, eyes wide and wet, whispering, "Mom," like it was a wish. And so the dead stayed for dinner. At night, Grandma's door never stayed shut. Mila heard her humming that lullaby with no words, like breath pushing through broken reeds. Sometimes she saw her in the hallway, scratching the walls, chewing the wood. One morning, the family dog vanished. In its place, a single tooth on Mila's pillow. Grandma said it was a gift. Mila didn't want to smile anymore. Mila began finding old photos turned to the wall. Every one of Grandma's smiling had been blackened, burned, or torn. When she asked Daddy why, he just blinked, confused, and said, "She's always been here, sweetie." But Mila remembered the funeral. She remembered the dirt, the screams, the closed casket, and she remembered what the priest had whispered, trembling. She made a promise to something in the dark. One night, Mila followed the humming down to the cellar. There, Grandma knelt naked in the dirt, sewing skin into a strange doll with long, hairless limbs. Her mouth was unhinged. The thing in the shadows behind her whispered through her lips in a tongue older than bones. Mila didn't scream. She just backed away. Because the doll, it had her face. Daddy disappeared next. In his place, a fresh doll appeared on the shelf in Grandma's sewing room, his wedding ring sewn over its heart. When Mila touched it, it whispered her name in his voice. Soft, broken. Grandma began calling her Little Seamstress and handed her a needle carved from a rib. Mila never spoke again. Years later, the house stands empty. Or so it seems. Children go missing near the woods, and every so often, someone sees a hunched old woman on the porch, brushing the hair of a child with black button eyes. Sometimes, at night, the wind carries a lullaby with no words. And in the attic, dozens of tiny voices whisper in stitches and teeth, "Grandma loves us very much."